Hi everyone. So I wanted to just give you a few hints on Kathy because this is a little more difficult to fill out the first page of the intervention plan, and some of you were asking about that. So I wanted to give you a few hints. So what I have here is just, it looks different than what you have. I had to, in order to be able to highlight and write on this, I had to convert the PDF to a Word document, and so it looks a little different because of that conversion. So, but the information is the same. So I highlighted some things that I think are important to know in terms of your intervention planning. The first one is average length of stay at this particular inpatient psychiatric crisis unit is 5 days. You would keep that in mind in terms of your intervention planning. Now, Kathy may stay longer, she may stay shorter. My guess would be longer. But that gives you an idea of about what you're working with, okay? I thought this was important to understand that all the patients on the unit were eligible for group, and these are the criteria. As long as they could concentrate on some type of task long enough to participate and be around people for approximately 45 minutes, okay? When Kathy comes up and she starts talking to the therapist, this is what she says. Kathy, why are you here? I read in the obituary that you are dead. Why are you doing this to me? So Kathy is essentially talking to herself. So that's telling you kind of where she's at in terms of psychosis. There's a little bit of information in terms of her story. Her name was Kathy, that she'd been found wandering the streets with voices telling her to kill herself, okay? Most likely schizophrenic, but could be other depression or anxiety with psychosis, but probably most likely schizophrenic. Much of the story talks about the therapist's reaction to Kathy, but I think you can just kind of glean from that information because she does kind of go over it. So the next thing I highlighted was psychotic behavior that she was demonstrating and probably needed to reconsider allowing the patient to be out on the ward unsupervised, okay? So the therapist feels like she probably shouldn't be wandering the ward unsupervised and felt very unsafe when Kathy came up from behind her. So maybe in terms of your intervention planning, at least initially, you probably wouldn't put her in a group. Maybe towards the end of the hospital stay, hopefully they have enough managed that she could maybe participate in a group. So I thought this was important because the therapist is trying to give you insight into what it must be like for Kathy. So she says, imagine how terrifying it must be for her to have no way to test reality or even to know reality when she was actively psychotic. So I thought that was a good insight into maybe some of what Kathy is feeling. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the therapist talks about how unstable Kathy's ego boundaries were. If you're not sure what that is, I gave you a reference to look up. It's actually in your Cole group dynamics. It's in the psychodynamic chapter, and here's the pages to look that up. This would be good to look up also because I think there might be some suggestions for interventions in that chapter. So take a look at that. It's going to give you a better sense of where Kathy might be. The last thing I wanted to, well, not the last thing, but another thing that I wanted to sort of point out, usually when patients come to this unit, they're in a secure room, and as they start exhibiting less symptoms, then the nurses determine and the doctor determine when they let them out of the room. This therapist is stating that she thinks they might have done that a little too early for Kathy.